All right, welcome back to Minutemen Initiative. We're going to be jumping right back into Reconnaissance. So, Reconnaissance Basics Part 2 today. We're going to be breaking down gear, different things you need to think about when packing for a mission like this, and then just a quick rundown on kind of the flow of the mission, kind of how it goes. So, let's get started. I'm just realizing more and more that I'm just becoming an old man, dude.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was literally like, I've just started making those classic, just involuntary noises that make no sense, dude.
Oh, no, dude.
I was going into the gas station on my way over here. I was going to grab myself a little coffee.
Yeah.
And, I just, like, opened the door. I, like, swung the door open, and I inhaled, and I was just like... And it was, and I kind of realized, like, I don't know, I was in my own head about it. Like, I was just kind of like, oh, whatever. And then, but right when I did it, the lady that was walking in front of me, like, whipped around and looked at me with this concerned face. And I realized that it was super loud. And I was like, oh, no, dude. And I kind of was just like, good morning. Just, like, walked in. It's like, no, dude, just the weird involuntary snort sound. So...
Crazy.
What do you do, dude?
Can't slow down getting old.
No, you can't. But so I'm just gonna accept it and start making weird noises all the time, intentionally.
Just extravagant noises.
It's extravagant noises.
Just noises that make no sense.
Yeah. Like what's wrong with you? Oh man. Well, Reconnaissance Part 2.
Yeah, we're getting right into it. We didn't think we were going to get right. Well, I didn't think we were going to get right into part 2, but
I mean, we kind of, I think last episode we kind of set up like, oh, at some point we're going to revisit this, and then we got to talking about it, and it was like, well, why not just jump back into it now,
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be good to have Reconnaissance Basics Part 1 and 2 kind of butted up, just to kind of like elaborate and kind of narrow in a little more on what we talked about, last episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, tune into that one. It's just kind of an introduction to the idea of reconnaissance and kind of the key things behind it, like what your main focus is, different types of reconnaissance and how they're used, and kind of what you would do, when you went out and
it's a really broad topic, so it's kind of hard without having like a set scenario on how to actually conduct it from beginning to end. So I think today's podcast is going to do a better job at kind of giving an example of that, I guess.
Yeah. So a big thing I think that comes after really understanding it is like knowing what kind of gear to have. And this really depends heavily on, team size, and kind of what your mission is going to be, what type of reconnaissance you're going to be doing.
Yeah, and what area you're in, weather, like what season it is. So, because if you're in the freezing cold, you're going to want warm stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're in the hot weather, then you're going to want more water or whatever.
Yeah. So we've put a list together, and we're going to start there. We're going to start with like the packing list. Now this is a very basic packing list, and it's obviously your packing list for a mission like this, like going out for a long period of time, which this list is specifically based on a 5-day period of time. So yeah. Basically, just let me back up a little bit. What we're going to be doing in this episode is we're basically taking a kind of a made up scenario of a situation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And we're going to have to go do reconnaissance on an objective and on like a an enemy position and gather as much intelligence as we can. So it's going to be based over a 5-day period. So this will give you a pretty decent idea of kind of what you'd want to have in your rucksack, which I think is a really good way to get into the second part of this, like understanding what it is, understanding what kind of gear and assets you need, and then understanding, kind of how to go tackle it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, keep in mind, take it with a grain of salt, use it more as like a template rather than like a recipe, because, or I guess like a rough outline, because it's going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different for where you live. It's going to be different for if you might be in an urban environment versus a rural environment, whereas we're in a very rural environment here in Alaska. So,
dude, urban reconnaissance, man.
Yeah.
That'll be a later podcast.
Yeah. It's a whole other monster.
Yeah. It's cool though. It's fun. I didn't get to do a ton of it, but when I did get to do it, I was like, this is way cooler. Because
because you're using structures,
you're in like a room and you figure out how to put up basically like you black out windows so you can't see. Like if someone were to see, like looking into the window, they wouldn't be able to see you because you got it. You make it look like it's all blacked out. Because like if you're like sitting up in the window, someone's gonna be able to see you. But if you can we would take like PVC pipes and black and sheets, like black sheets and stuff, and basically like box them around you in the room.
Oh yeah.
So that way, when you look up in there, it just looks dark. And it's like, okay, there's no one up in there. But little do you know, there's just someone chilling in there watching you.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that's a different.
Yeah, we did some of that kind of stuff, like doing, DM stuff, like counter sniper stuff, where you're like, you set up your gun position like pretty far back in the room.
Yeah.
And then change like your elevation in the room and stuff. So it's like really hard to see in there. And then, yeah, you use like, we didn't actually build like a little structure out of PVC pipe. That's kind of sick, but
yeah, we literally had like kits that we had pre-built for doing that. And that was just like that was like a specialty item that someone rucked in if we were doing them like city.
Yeah, we would hang like camo net or like mesh or something kind of in front of the window, but then you make yourself a big enough hole to where you can view out of it pretty easy. But if you look back in the window at that, like you can't see what's in there at all. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah. You don't want anything directly up in the window though, because it's just going to get seen from the lighting from the outside.
No, this is back, like hanging off the ceiling.
Yeah. But anyways,
that is a separate podcast.
That might be like an Instagram post kind of thing more than anything, because pictures do wonders for that kind of stuff. But
we'll touch on it. I think it would be good to
same thing with the serve side. I want to do a post like showing pictures of each step of a serve site, because
and if you listen and you don't follow us on Instagram, maybe you don't have an Instagram or something, but definitely go give us a follow. We are shadow banned, so you're gonna have to type it in all the way. It's Dynamic Defense Solutions, and there's a period in between each word, so it's Dynamic Defense Solutions, and that's our username. So, and it will force you to type in every single letter, and then finally it'll pop up, and you'll see our little gear with the DDS in it, and that's us. But there's another company called Dynamic Defense Solutions. It's in Pakistan randomly, and they make like armored vehicles, but that's not us. So.
No.
Yeah, their logo is like a weird golden eagle looking thing. So yeah, like I always have buddies all the time. They're like, "Dude, your business is killing it," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man." They're like, "I didn't know you were making like armored vehicles." I was like, "Oh no, dude, that's some company in Pakistan. That's not me, bro." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, but we're still killing it. Not that much apparently though.
No.
So anyways, we're gonna go through this packing list, and I think take note of it. It's something to kind of maybe go off of a little bit, and then we're gonna talk about some different tools and stuff that you may need to have, and Steven's gonna really kind of break down why you'd want certain things, because he obviously comes from a reconnaissance background, so
Yeah.
you know about all the little tips and tricks along the way when it comes to this
Some
stuff.
of them, I mean.
But so the very first thing we'll start with is like your weapon system. We'll start with the fun stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the first category. And I think for this, it's really worth having a rifle platform, something with a little bit more reach.
Yeah, I think that 14.5 is like your bare minimum for like recce kind of stuff, dude. But I mean, like you get that 14.5 to like 18-inch barrel, and you're kind of sitting in that golden zone. So like 16's kind of the right in that in between line. But I wouldn't go much longer than 18 though, because then you're just dealing with a big old rifle system.
Yeah, and you could maybe have somebody in your element.
Yeah,
that's got more of a DMR kind of build. Maybe a 21-inch barrel or whatever. But honestly, I mean, nowadays, especially if you're slinging 5.56, like if you're kind of rolling with that Mark 12 kind of style setups where you have like, everything's a little more recce rifle-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, 18-inch barrels are solid. Like they're hard to beat.
They are. It does good with the 5.56.
It does. But yeah, and this is based on a 6-person mission. That's kind of what we decided. So basically, we're going to have...
Yeah, you can go more or less, but you're going to end up, sacrificing stuff by going less. And then if you go more, you're able to potentially bring in more as well. So it's...
Yeah.
You're able to go more. So I felt 6 was like a good round number. So basically 2 in each position that we talked about last time. So you're 2 in your MSS, 2 in your hide site, and 2 in your serve site. And basically, this is going to be obviously the packing list for some of this stuff's going to be almost like not everyone has to carry everything in this packing list, but we'll just kind of give a good rundown on what you should be thinking about carrying. Because you got to think about being able to survive on your own as well in case like things go wrong. So that's to be considered as well when you're doing these packing lists. But anyways, we'll get into it.
So you want to have a good source of magnification on your rifle setup. Something like an LPVO I think would work really well. And maybe like we said, if you want to have one guy that's got a little more of a DMR setup, he or she could even have more magnification on board. So
yeah,
like we're talking like the 1 to 6, 1 to 8 territory for in general. And then if you want to have more, maybe you're rocking that 2.5 to 12 or whatever, maybe even more, the 3.5 to 18 or whatever. Those magnification travels are so crazy now. Like I remember like back when I was doing all this stuff, my DMR was the old 4 to 16, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
So, and that was that. Actually, it might have been 4 to 12. Yeah, it was 4 to 12. It was the Mark IV, which was a 4 to 12 power. But now it's like, DMR setups are having like, they got like 36 magnification and stuff. And it's just like, what? See into the future with that.
Yeah.
But signature reduction is something that you want to consider. If you have suppressors, then absolutely. Like, it's just a no-brainer. Like, you should have suppressors. But at a minimum, I think flash suppression is going to be, muzzle flash signature reduction using like a good muzzle device, something like a Surefire 3-prong or 4-prong or something like that. But yeah,
suppressors are kind of hard to beat for this line of work. So I feel like going somewhere, trying to get to that point is ultimately like where you want to be. Because
yeah,
I mean, it's obvious. Like, you're trying not to get seen, and if you do end up having to shoot, yeah, someone sees you, but let's not like notify the whole world that things are happening.
Yeah, and I mean the biggest thing that or the easiest thing to identify isn't necessarily the shot. It's the muzzle flash.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, in all of the engagements I've been in, like you hear gunfire and you hear bullets like flying past you and stuff like that. Like you hear like the crack over your head, and that's like all. It's hard. It's actually surprisingly hard to identify where a shot might be coming from, even if it's not suppressed at all. But if you see a muzzle flash, it's pretty easy, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's something to consider. But yeah, suppressors are just, you know, they give you signature reduction. Then they also give you excuse me.
You just got like the nastiest stuff in your throat right now.
I guess. Man, I keep feeling like I'm about to start like
drink some water, dude.
I did drink water. Actually, I didn't, but
yeah. Also, on top of like signature reduction, I mean, this is more in lines of like when you're shooting, but paint your rifle, because you know, having you can have all the camo in the world and trying to blend in, but if you're just toting around a big old black rifle, then it's gonna be pretty easy to see, like,
yeah,
in the wood line. So
super easy.
Paint your rifle.
They also stick out like a sore thumb under IR.
Yeah,
like black rifles they're so easy to see. That's like when I was overseas, we had some ex-SAS guys on our compound, and they were contractors. They were doing work with like the ABP and stuff like that. Kind of training them up, making them not suck, because they sucked. But they deployed with AKs. That's what they went in with, which made sense because they're working with those guys and they were teaching them, like, you know, some small arms techniques and how to actually shoot well and not just hold your AK over a rock and pull the trigger down, you know?
Yeah.
So, but when we got there, they came up to our leadership and they said, "Hey, do you guys have any, they were like, you guys have any extra M4s you could sign out to us?" And they were like, yeah, we do, but why? You know, our leadership was kind of like, well, what's the purpose of that? They're like, because if we get overran, or if we have like a close to the wire engagement, and all these infantry kids are out here hopped up shooting people, they're like, they're going to shoot anybody they see under nods with an AK. So we'd rather not have AKs for that reason.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're going to see this black rifle right away and we're not going to get shot. And I was like, that is the coolest reasoning. Like, cause that's so true, you know, cause you can identify weapons under night vision pretty easily, especially that black, you know, M4. So,
especially since that's like such a skill that's like hounded into you, like from a training aspect, like to do like, you know, like that's all we ever worked on. It seemed like when we were doing like clearing rooms, doing Battle Drill 6 and stuff like that. It's like, it was always about like, okay, what's in the person's hand before you smoke the person. Like,
yep.
And that might have just been the era that I was in the military for, but like they would always try to trick you and like throw like something weird in the person's hand. And it's like, all right,
like
good
a
thing
water
I didn't
bottle or
shoot that
something.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so like, you know, when you're in a firefight, I feel like it's almost second nature to just be like trying to figure out like, okay.
Yeah, it's part of PID. You know, it's part of positive identification. You know, you're doing a really quick scan, you know, with you know, weapon pointed and trained on them. So, yeah.
And also on the rifle, before we move on from the rifle as well, is if you're running MBGs and all that, make sure you got your IR capabilities. And then not only that, but like either having a 45 red dot, or if you're running an LPVO, it's tough to run your like do passive shooting through your actual LPVO. So having like a red dot on board somewhere helps a lot, whether that's just mounted on top of the LPVO or 45 off on the rail. So
yeah, I would say for passive shooting, the 12 o'clock position, like on top of the LPVO, is going to be a lot easier because you got a good height, and it's pretty natural. It's not much of a difference than what you're doing under active aiming, which is with like an IR device.
yeah, you're pretty much holding the rifle in the exact same spot. You're looking.
Yeah.
If the dot wasn't there, you're looking like in the same spot. You're looking right over top of your optic. And pressing your IR laser.
Yeah.
Like run your IR laser, and then. But if you do have a dot there, then it's no different from where you're holding your gun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which this is an entirely different topic, but if you're running, NVGs, if you're running IR stuff, like absolutely have, IR aiming device capabilities, but you got to practice and you got to know how to passively shoot under NVGs, because if your adversary also has IR capabilities, and they're rocking night vision, they're going to just see your active aiming, your laser just shining around.
yeah, you're like, all right, well, now I know where they are.
Yeah. I mean, we treated it like a negligent discharge. Like if you accidentally, ran your laser under nods, that you'd get in huge trouble for it. Like that was a huge thing. Like, like they literally treated it like a negligent discharge, like firing your rifle on accident.
Yeah.
That and white lighting and just running your IR laser on accident.
Yeah, because it's all giving up your position,
Yeah.
Like, a negligent discharge could lead to like potentially friendly fire or something like that, which that's way worse than popping a white light on, your element. But ultimately, all of them are giving up your position. So
yeah, and that's a big no-no, especially in the reconnaissance side of it. Like, you cannot do it. So I mean, we had guys that we in our unit and stuff that would just somehow, they were just those bumbly dudes that would just thumb around on stuff and get a quick little.
It's an important. It's also pretty important to think about, like, when you're setting up your like switches and stuff like that for all your mounted lasers and lights and stuff like that. So just making sure that it's not something that you're going to be able to easily activate, or just have good discipline and know, like for me, like, I don't do anything special. Like, I have my buttons pretty much out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you got to ultimately you got to want to press it, but I'm also like not dumb, and I make sure not to just somehow just press stuff that,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, some people just don't have like that common sense. It's like, it's the same thing as your trigger finger. Yeah, the trigger's still there always.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to somehow just like run your, like, I could be walking around off safety and I'm still probably never going to shoot that gun. Like,
right.
I mean, obviously I'm never going to do that, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah, just pulling the Blackhawk down. This is my safety.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Finger.
No, I would never do that, but I'm just saying, like,
that's what he does every time we go to the range. Don't lie.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, if you're just one of those fat finger types, you're just fat fingering around and just shoveling your little,
I mean, we have them in our group of guys,
digits around, then take preventative measures. Like, you can use grip tape. Like, that's a tip that I've always really liked. Like, put grip tape on your button, if you're running switches.
Or you just don't run switches and you just run it manually off like the pack or whatever, because
you could do that too.
It's way harder to press that button than it is to.
But you could run like grip tape on one, and say, this is my white light, and then just like have a smooth button on the other one. That's my IR. Or just like, honestly, I mean, you could either unplug your white light. White light's the biggest one. You don't want to just white light around in the dark, like ever. And so you can either unplug it or like unscrew the bezel enough to where it's not going to engage, and then you just screw it right back down when you need it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and going back to like maintaining your rifle and getting it painted and stuff like that. The other thing too is, like, if you buy either a pre-coated rifle that's like in an earth tone, that's a good way to go. But just understand where you live, because like, the cool thing right now is to Cerakote or get a lot of guns are coming pre-coated, like that tan, that FDE color.
Yeah. And
in some environments, that color flashes really bad. So like here in the like fall time, springtime like now where it's a little more, there's less vegetation. And then even when there is a lot more vegetation, like we have a lot of bright greens here. A lot of greens, lots of greens.
Yeah.
Tan sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it's not as bad as black, not nearly as bad. So what you can do, though, what I'm leading up to is that if you do have a gun that's pre-coated, or you go get, you buy it, or you go have somebody Cerakote it. Cerakote's fantastic. Like, it's a good,
base layer.
Baked on. Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. It's a good baked on coat, and it's going to protect your gun. But, treat it like a base layer. Treat it like a base color. Like, don't be afraid to hit it with a little spray paint. Or if you're going out of the trouble to get your gun Cerakoted, maybe talk to whoever's doing it and be like, hey, let's use these 3 or 4 colors, because it'll break up the outline a lot better. So FDE does look pretty good under IR. That's actually why the Army trials have, like, all these recent trials to replace the M4,
Yeah.
They've all required like some kind of a tan, like earth tone coating, like FDE or kind of like a coyote color. And it's because it works really good under IR, but so does gray, though. Like, gray works really good too. So there's a lot of stuff. And then a painted rifle works great. Just use like flat colors. Like, don't use anything that has any kind of sheen to it, because
like the Krylon or the Rust-Oleum camouflage paints do good.
Yeah, use like ultra matte, I think is what a lot of them call it, or ultra flat.
I can't remember if that's Krylon or which company makes that. I think it's Krylon that does the ultra flat, but the other one's just flat. Like, I mean, they're for camouflage. Like, they're all going to be flat colored. So,
but I mean, if you're hiding up in the woods with the recce mission anyways, and you're doing your job right, you shouldn't be close enough for somebody to, pick out your gun under IR necessarily.
No, probably not.
Thermal's, I think, going to be your biggest concern. But so kind of moving out of that, you want to have a good chest rig. I think it's important to have something that you can carry enough gear in. And for leading on to that, or going from that, you want to have your rifleman loadout at a minimum, we believe, which is 210 rounds or 730 round magazines.
Yeah.
So that's 6 on you and 1 in your rifle. And that's a minimum. Like, I think you should have more in your ruck. There's nothing worse than like running out of ammunition. Like, that would be, I've never been in that situation, thank goodness. And I've never been close to that. Like, thankfully, all the firefights I've ever been in are pretty short. And some of the more, extended wouldn't even be the right word, but because, again, all of mine were thankfully very short. But, we had ammo in our rucks and stuff like that. So,
yeah, you don't want to be the guy that the firefight ends for you because you ran out of ammo. Like,
yeah.
Like, what a lame way to go out. I mean, not really lame. Like, if you came prepared, if you had a bunch of ammo and you ran out that way, then I guess you did your best at that point.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Kind of touched on the IR capabilities, but obviously just make sure you have lasers and illuminators.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. If you're going to be running MVGs. It's not, we kind of talked about it yesterday, but whenever we did the last podcast. Where was I going with that? Oh, you don't have to have MVGs for doing this stuff. I mean, it's going to make it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
But, because nighttime, honestly, you're not gathering a whole bunch of reconnaissance during the night anyways. I mean, there's some activity that happens at night, but for the majority of your stuff, it's going to be happening during the day. But you do have to, like, infill and exfil at nighttime, so that's where that's where the MVGs kind of really make it easier on you than just trying to walk around at night without.
Yeah, because you can't use any kind of light.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to get seen. I was going to ask this, if you are a team that's rocking and rolling without MVG capability, is this something you could do like like dusk? Like, could you get away with some of this stuff in like in low light where like
the problem is that window is short,
right?
So you just got to plan it out well. I mean, you totally could do it. You could do it even at night. Like if you have a good night of like where you don't have much cloud coverage and you have good loom from the moon, then I mean, there's plenty of times I did entire land nav courses without like with my night vision up, you know, like so. Like sometimes it's easier just to cruise around without your night vision on, but just know that if you can see that well at night, probably your adversaries can too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and up here, honestly, like it's tough. Like the reconnaissance mission up here, as far as lighting goes, is pretty tough because in the summers it don't really get dark.
No.
You get like an hour and a half of darkness, and that's it.
No, and that's why
and it doesn't really actually get pitch black.
I would say you get to your objective here. You get on objective prior to it getting nighttime, and then as soon as it starts to drop, that's when you start putting in the work.
So you're doing like above surface, like gillied up, probably.
Yeah, just basically hanging out, like probably gillies or camo nets, whatever you need.
Yeah.
You're on the objective already, and you're probably got the whole team on the objective, waiting till it gets dark enough to actually like dig in, and then you dig in, get them staged, and then get out, boogie out. But you're gonna have to move.
Yeah, and then in contrast, in the wintertime here, and this, you reminded me when you brought up the land nav thing. When we did a winter land nav, like you rarely need to use your nods because
you get reflection off the snow.
Oh yeah, the snow's white, and you get good like loom from the moon or something.
Yeah.
Dude, you're just chilling. Like you're literally like you can look like 100 yards across and see someone crunching around, you know, snowshoeing through the snow. You're just like, hey, is that Vrooman? Like, yeah, dude. Like, oh, let's move, let's boogie together. Well, I got to go to a different point. Oh, that's too bad, you know, or whatever. But yeah, I mean that makes it tough too, because when it does get dark here, you know, it's wintertime, and then you've got snow,
and then you also got the whole thing where nighttime here, like you're dealing with snow, so you're crunching around in snowshoes more than likely.
Oh yeah, loud.
So I mean, there could be an argument that maybe setting in during the daytime actually would be more beneficial during the wintertime.
Yeah, could be. The benefit of the winter here, though, like when we did a lot of different tactical movements and stuff like that, is that it's really hard to see into the wood line and stuff, because you've got all the, like, you know, as long as there's snow on the trees. But if you've split up your camo right, you know, you've got the right kind of camouflage and stuff on. This is kind of getting into a rabbit trail here, but then, you know, you can hide pretty well. So, but anyways, we'll keep moving, because that's just going in a weird direction. But so like getting into anything else on rifle, like,
do we cover the chest rigs?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yep. So getting into equipment, you want to have a good rucksack, and you want to have at least 60 liters to work with, especially for like a 5-day kind of setup. And honestly, that's gonna be cutting it pretty close.
Yeah,
like you got to pack some stuff in there.
Yeah.
So,
dude, just stovepipe it in, dude. You'll be all right.
Just Ranger rolling everything, dude.
Yeah.
And then obviously you want to have, if you got them, you want to have night vision goggles and MVG support. So, you know, that's everything from
mounts,
J-arms, mounts, caps,
lanyards, batteries.
Yep. Oh, extra batteries. You got to have extra batteries.
Yeah.
You're running MVGs. Don't get, because dude, those things, I mean, they're not bad. Like you can rock and roll on them for a while, but you definitely, especially if you're running some of the higher end units, like some of the bino setups and stuff, you usually got to run battery packs and stuff like that. One for counterbalance, and then two, like those things burn through some batteries.
Yeah.
So, and then helmet, right?
Yeah, helmet. It's gonna be able to do a lot for you, especially if you're running MVGs, because you're getting your radio stuff knocked out with the helmet as well. If you're trying to go like more boony style, like for us in the reconnaissance world, like if you're trying to save on weight and space inside your ruck, sometimes we'd rock like the skull crushers, which those things suck. But the Ops Core, are they the SMSs?
Yeah,
is that right?
The skull mounting system.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, those things, I don't have any experience with them, but they look like they're way more comfy than.
Yeah, it's basically like a modern day skull crusher, but it looks like it's pretty cozy actually.
So like you could save space by having something like that. And
weight too.
Yeah, if you don't want to be rocking a helmet the whole time.
Did you guys because I know when we went up into OPs, like from a DM kind of more DM mission where we'd go set up like hasty OPs and stuff, we'd bring our helmets, but we'd just like attach them to our bag and just cruise like quick.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you guys did?
Yeah. Like I would just have my helmet like either on the outside of my ruck or the inside of my ruck. We'd jump in with them. We pretty much always had our helmets because we were always doing airborne operations into our location, and then after that you could take the helmet off and put it in your ruck or put it on the outside. I usually just put it like right on the top and just ran the flap right over top of it, and then I just threw the boonie on. And
then you just mount up nods whenever you need to, kind of thing.
Yeah, usually I just rock my helmet again for whenever it got nighttime again, because it's like whatever at that point. But
right,
I mean, you're having to have something on your head regardless, and I hated the skull crushers, so
yeah, those things suck.
Just rock the old ACH, dude, which wasn't much better, honestly.
Yeah, it still gave you the old Rhino hotspot.
Yeah.
Yeah, then moving on from there, you need to have good radio and good radio support. So like however you're set up, if you're rocking through like Peltors or some kind of headset, you got to have good PTTs, good push to talk.
Dude, you're just struggling still over there somehow or another.
And so yeah, good radio. And then this is deep. Like radios are a deep topic, and we're gonna definitely get into some radio basics stuff in the future. But it's not as simple as just grabbing some like Baofeng radios or some like two-way, Walmart radios and throwing them in your gear.
Yeah. I think those have a place, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Baofeng radios are pretty capable. But the biggest thing is like, you have to make sure you're all on the same frequency. If you're using encryption, you got to have the same key, so your radios can actually like understand each other. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. The benefit of those little Walmart radios though, is that they're actually really, really low power.
Yeah.
So they're on FRS frequencies, which is Family Radio Service, but which is like open, to. There's some rules, like it technically has to be a radio with a detachable antenna and all these little stupid things, but generally FRS frequencies are pretty much available for like just anyone to use. So those little two-way radios, channels, they usually are, what are they? It's like 1 through 24 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think there's 20, 23 or 24 frequencies that are FRS. Wow.
Sorry about
bless
that.
you. That almost sounded like that Will Smith slap, dude.
Dude. Chris Rock's having flashbacks.
Wow, dude. Wow. Dude, that was crazy. Dude, I was watching, I told my wife, I was like, man, that was, first of all, that was weak. I thought that was weak for him to go do.
Dude. Anyone that's like congratulating that, it's like, dude.
Like, stop being I'll use unfriendly words. I don't want to, but
it's like, dude, you were laughing about it literally when you made the joke, and then
that was some like,
just because your wife isn't happy with you doesn't mean that you have to go like prove your loyalties.
That was some wiener crap, but
yeah.
Dude. But anyways, I told Samantha, I was like, man, he would have never done that if it was somebody like Joe Rogan up there, like giving that speech. That's the thing. He went up there, I'm a big famous celebrity, and it's little Chris Rock up there, and he's gonna go up there and smack him, dude. If that was,
dude, but Chris Rock took it like a champ, dude.
Oh,
Let's
he
not
did.
talk about that. Like he just kept his hands back there, and and then he continued to make a joke.
He
He's
opened
like,
up his stance when he got hit that first time. Like
at first, he was like, "Yeah," and then he goes back and he kind of puts his hands back, and he's Will Smith just slapped the shit out of him.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, dude, it caught me so off guard. I mean, I wasn't watching the Oscars because who gives a crap about that? But I just saw it everywhere. I started seeing it, and I thought it was, I thought maybe it was some kind of staged like thing, but then I guess it wasn't. So the crazy thing is, though, is like he didn't get removed or anything, and then on top of that, he goes on to win, like Will Smith.
Yeah.
I thought that was crazy, but I saw Joe Rogan talking about it though, and
oh, he was pissed. Yeah, he didn't like it one bit.
yeah. The guy he was talking to was like, because Joe Rogan was like, well, that sets a precedence. Like, what if people start doing that? And the other guy he's talking to was like, oh man, I want to see somebody try to do that to you or Brendan Schaub. Because Brendan Schaub does all that stand-up stuff now.
Yeah.
Bro, like, do you imagine just one of those like...
Or Theo Vaughn even. Like, Theo Vaughn ain't taking that.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Or Bill Burr.
No, dude.
Bill Burr would be... I mean, Bill Burr, like, I don't think he's really a fighter by any means, but he looks like he could scrap if he needed to. So, but just imagine Joe Rogan just opened up his hips, pow, with one of those kicks he does, dude.
Yeah.
You break somebody in half like that. Like, Will Smith would have crumbled into oblivion, dude.
I don't know if Joe Rogan would have done that though.
Oh, probably not.
Joe Rogan probably just dodged it and been like, "Whoa, dude!"
I don't know. Like old Joe Rogan, I think young Joe Rogan would have thrown down.
Oh yeah,
you have
probably.
that old footage of him when he used to host.
Yeah, no, he didn't care.
Yeah, he like fought that one guy on set, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was also on like coke, like 80% of his time that he was like doing anything.
Coke, was he?
What?
He wasn't on coke, was he?
He was addicted to coke at one point, wasn't he?
Just making stuff up.
No, dude.
Was he?
That's where like Fear Factor ended and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. I'm out of the loop, I guess.
Yeah, he talks about it. That's why he's always like, he's a really addictive personality. That's why he's got to like have all these weird hobbies.
Oh, I thought he said he's never done. I don't know. I thought I'd heard him say he's never done coke or whatever before, but
oh, maybe not. But
it was probably something though.
He's definitely on drugs. At one point.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I'm not just talking weed either. I'm talking like actually like harder stuff.
You're
like,
probably right.
Weed's like whatever, man. That naturally grows. So I'm not gonna do it, but whatever. To each their own, I guess.
But dude, I just thought that was just the weakest thing. Like dude, and you, not even to get into like all the weird, like I was watching what's it called?
Dude, are we going on a tangent?
It's a tangent, dude. We're gonna see it through. Skip Bayless and
okay,
Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Dude, Shannon Sharp was talking about it. He was cracking me up, dude.
Did he not like it?
Oh no, he didn't. He didn't like it at all. He was so
like?
mad about it.
Let's hear that Shannon Sharp impersonation.
He said, where was that? He said, now Skip, listen to me now, Skip. Nope. Where was that slap at when Jada was over there talking about that entanglement? Where was that? And I was like, dude, no way he pulls that up. Listen, Skip. Skip. Hold on now, Skip. Skip.
If I could do a Skip Bayless impersonation, I totally
I don't
would,
even know how to do Skip Bayless. He's just like, yeah, well,
how about them Cowboys?
There you go. I told you now, Skip. Yeah, the Cowboys were coming. They were coming.
Yeah.
Anyways, dude, Shannon Sharp is a treasure. He needs to be protected at all costs. But he told him.
But so Denzel Washington. Did you see his little clip? Like when Will Smith's like breaking down, he's like, Denzel told me.
When you're at your highest, the devil's coming for
and
you,
then
or whatever.
It just pans over to Denzel, and he's just looking like a G over there,
like
dude.
A G, yeah. Well, Shannon Sharp though said that if that would have happened to him, he said from here on out, it's on site. It's on site.
What does that mean?
Like, just meaning like you're fighting on site. Like as soon as you see him, it's on site. That's what he kept saying. I was like, yo, dude. But he would have done that to somebody like Shannon Sharp.
Anyways, now that we
so that's a really important thing about it. Reconnaissance, like you need to You need to understand what's going on at the Oscars and have an opinion on slaps. No, I'm just kidding. What in the world? How did we get there?
I don't know.
Oh,
We're talking
your
about
sneeze.
radios. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Stop sneezing. Just
You're
kidding.
the one that's...
I know. So random. So yeah, radios. Man, I have no idea what we're even talking about. Radios are complicated. Be smart. Do your homework. Listen to stuff. Read. Watch YouTube videos. Figure it out. Because it's super deep.
Yep.
We're going to have more stuff on that in the future.
Content will be there
All right, what's next?
soon. Hopefully soon. If our radio guy cooperates with us and actually wants to come onto the podcast.
No, he does. He wants to.
Alrighty. Uniform. Top bottoms.
Yeah.
We kind of talked. We breezed over this a little bit. Well, not
You don't
breezed,
want to
but
be naked out there.
yeah, we talked about it on the last podcast. It's important to have good camouflage for the area that you're in and the season that you're operating in. So that mean multiple camouflages, and then it's also good for identification purposes, like to be able to know who's your guys and who's not your guys. So
Yep.
that's to be considered as well when you're buying them gears.
Yeah, and sometimes it's important to think outside the box a little bit. Like, you know, if everybody in your area is rocking a certain kind of camo, pay attention to that. And what I mean by everybody in your area is like local law enforcement, National Guard, you know, civilians, other groups that might be doing similar stuff to you.
Which, I mean, the civilian stuff, as long as you're on good relations with them, it's not a bad thing. But if you're trying to roll within a tight knit, like, keep those guys together, you know? Like, if you have a group of guys and then you end up forming alliances, if you do have, like, a mass fallout.
Yeah.
Obviously keep the guys together that have been training with each other for a while.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you can.
Yeah.
Also, kind of on the clothing side of things, like, make sure you have good socks. Like,
Gotta have good socks.
dude, you got to have good socks.
There's nothing worse, dude. Like, I'm serious. I mean, we've both been in just the most miserable, like, why are we still out here moments? And probably the most miserable, like, dude, I'm telling you right now, like, I talked about last time about being the coldest I've ever been. Even though I was stationed here in Alaska, the coldest I've ever been wasn't here. It was in Afghanistan. But the most miserable I've ever been, like, not just being cold, but being just all around miserable, was here in Alaska. And it was up in Donnelly Training Area in Fort Greely. And it wasn't even winter. It was like fall. And, dude, it was raining. And it was just that rain that makes no sense. Like, it wasn't very hard, but it's just like, it's just the constant, you know, that rain that we get here that just like, but somehow you get so wet and you're like, how am I wet? Because like the rain's on everything. Like you brush up against like a pine needle and you're just like, and you're just like soaked afterwards and it makes no sense. And all of my gear,
Dude,
like,
that weather can make someone go crazy too.
dude, we were going insane. So what we were doing is we were actually OP4, and we had a
That's
really
even worse, dude. That's
Yeah.
when you just settle down and start up the fire and just say,
dude,
you know what?
we were out there for like 6 days, and we were the worst part is like we had a young LT at the time, brand new. We had just come back from like Afghanistan and stuff, so we were already like, what's going on? Like we don't want to be out here.
Yeah.
We're super disgruntled. So we already went into it with like a bad attitude. But dude, my feet were so wet and I had gone through all my socks. Like, cause I kept thinking like, we'll be out of here. Like we're supposed to be out there for about 48 hours. And we had to like set up a weird camp and like, it didn't make any sense. Basically we were supposed to ambush this other platoon and they got lost. That platoon got lost. They were just land navving around into oblivion. Like, I don't know even where they went, but which that sucks for them and they're stupid, but that really sucked for us because like it was staged, you know, we were supposed to ambush them. We were supposed to be on their like route.
Yeah.
And they just like, we had basically like reconnaissance stuff set up. So we had like a bunch of different elements and we were like watching and it just got to the point where we just all bundled together, like, because we just stopped caring. Like, it was like, this is dumb. Like, at this point, we kept telling the LT, like, we got to leave. Like, we're done. And he's like, no, we need to stay. Like, they're going to be here. And I don't even think it was 6 days. I think it was only like 3, but it felt like forever. Well, I kept changing my socks because I was like, oh, well, we'll get out of here soon. So my socks would get wet and I'd just change them. And then you put them right back into wet boots. So they're good for like a couple hours, but then it's like they're just soaked again. And you're just like, oh. Well, I just got to the point where I just had no socks left that made any sense. Like, it was like putting on an eel, like they were just soaked. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. We literally had a guy start laughing. Like, he just started uncontrollably laughing. And it just made me start like uncontrollably laughing. And then like while that was happening with this other guy, dude, I won't put him on blast. I won't say his name, but this other guy just started crying. And we were like, what's like, I just remember thinking like, dude, what is this? Like, he was just crying. Like, he was like, this is so stupid. And we were like, I was like, what's going on? And then another guy was just like going into like a psychotic episode. Like, he was just like, ah! Like throwing rocks and just being angry. And I just remember looking around being like, dude, we've all lost our minds. Like, we made it through a deployment and we're back here. But it was just like the constant, like, it was cold enough to where it just sucked. Like, you couldn't stay warm.
Yeah.
You were like shivering. Even though we had all our like Gore-Tex and everything, we couldn't keep fires going because it was just so wet and like everything was
surprised.
soaked.
The OPFOR side, I never had issues on the OPFOR side.
Dude, it was miserable, man.
But I mean, I had plenty of times like being on the field and just like, because North Carolina, it rains, dude. And anyone that knows North Carolina, when you get in that cold season, it's still raining. You're still getting that heavy rain, but you're also just it's cold. Like, it's just cold out, and the amount of times that we would go out, this is it's a 5-day mission.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're out there for like 7-8 days. And you're just like, dude, it has not stopped raining the entire time we've been out here. And I've had so many times where I remember one time they finally just were like, you know what, we're going to let you guys kind of regroup. So we got my entire platoon back together and we just did like a patrol base to let us like dry out because we finally got some sun. And I remember just taking my socks off and my feet just were like, looked like they were about to fall off the bone, like.
Yeah, they just looked like jellyfish.
Yeah, it was like a good roast,
Yeah. Just cooked low and slow, dude.
Yeah, dude, it was cooked low and slow, dude. And I just remember being like, holy cow, I've never been just so wet. And it just never stopped raining. It just did not stop raining. It was like, finally it stopped raining, and it was like our last day there. And they were like, yeah, we're going to kind of regroup. And I think they just realized, like, we've put these guys through a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't, like, no one went crazy like that. That's at least not in my group of guys, but
that's the only time I've ever seen it. And I think
I did have my squad leader at one point just stand up and he just took his shirt off. Well, like, he's like, all right, everyone get your rain gear out. And I was sitting there and he just started laughing and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I was just sitting there like pulling security. Because I was a saw gunner at the time. And I'm just sitting there pulling security, looking out. And he's like, Barley, you gonna get your rain gear? And I'm like, what's the point? I'm already soaked anyways. There's no point to put rain gear on over top of this. Like,
yeah,
I'm already soaked. And he just kind of started laughing. He's like, he's kind of just like, that's hysterical. Well, then all of a sudden I look back and he's just got his shirt off and he's just standing up with his arms just out, spread out. And he's
just accepting the rain.
He's just looking up in the sky. And the dude was built like a freaking Greek god, but he was just like, he was literally just sitting out there just getting rained on. And I just remember looking back at him.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this guy, like, we're losing our, like, most elite soldier that I've probably ever worked for or ever worked with the entire time I was in the military. And I just looked back and he was just, like, shirt off, just, like, looking up in the sky, like, strike me down if you can. And I was just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
But anyways, he later dropped a packet. Now he's doing bigger, better things in the world, but...
Yeah, tier 1 and around.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it was like, I mean, there's something to be said about knowing that something doesn't matter. Like, we went into it so disgruntled and just like because they were basically making us do it because we were just like, I don't know. It was just like, well, we're going to be up for, like, let's go out here. It's going to be fun. So we were kind of like, all right, well, the weather was already miserable and we were like, this is going to suck, you know?
Dude,
so,
I wouldn't have done it.
Dude, it was
like, get me in a Connex box.
We basically didn't. Like, we basically just got to the point where we were just all huddled
just
around
got
trying
back
to make
from
a fire
Afghanistan.
run.
Like, you shouldn't be having to get thrown into that.
It was retarded, dude. It was so just trash. But
anyways, headgear, boonies, caps, whatever your fancy is.
I think it's hard to beat the boonie.
Yeah,
I'm a cap guy. Like, I like caps, but in that environment, I'm usually the.
I think a cap
man.
From a distance, like if you're getting silhouetted,
yeah,
a cap is easier to be like, that's a human.
Yeah, like that dude's trying to go to the baseball game right now.
Yeah. But boonies are a little bit. They kind of break it up a little bit. Oh, sorry.
Whoa.
Break it up a little bit. Extra clothing for the reason that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you got to have extra clothes, and mostly you got to have extra socks. Like, that's probably the number one thing.
If you've got room, like, just throw in an extra pair. Like, when you got all your clothes, you're like, all right, I got enough clothes. If you end up with more room at the end and, like, you've got weight to spare, just throw in one extra set. Like, having that extra set that just never gets used is, like, actually nice.
Yeah, but when you do have to use it, it's like
it's a lifesaver.
It's the motivator, dude. It's like that motivation spike. Ghillie camo net, that's going to be very dependent on the mission. If you feel you need to do, like, if we're like what we were talking about, summertime Alaska, not much light, maybe a ghillie suit's good to have, or a camo net. Camo nets do really good at breaking up IR signature as well. And then there's like actually companies that make camo nets specifically for breaking up IR signature as well. So
yeah.
You can either go like a camo net per person, like smaller camo nets, or you can do kind of like what we were talking about, where the hide site needs a bigger camo net.
Yeah.
To kind of do some like aerial IR signature breakup.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think that might be a better route if you're doing a camo net. Maybe just do like 2 larger camo nets that can cover both teams, your hide site and your surf site. And then you just, depending on who's got what, like gear wise, like at the end, like who's carrying binos, who's carrying spotting scopes and things like that, you like try to like kind of divvy out the weight. Okay, we're gonna give you the, camo net.
Yeah, and then
because you don't have much, kind of thing.
Whoever's going to be where dictates kind of who carries what as well. Like,
yeah,
your spotting scope needs to go with somebody that probably that's going to be in your surf
makes
site.
It way easier. So having that pre-planned out is obviously pretty important, because it makes it so you're not having to like dig through your ruck on top of building the surf site if you're going subsurface.
Do you think it's worthwhile for everyone to just kind of get in the habit and do you think it's worth having ghillie elements, like some kind of compact ghillie suit at a minimum that you just keep in your ruck, or do you think it just takes up too much room and you should just kind of treat it like mission dependent?
I think you treat it mission dependent, because
they're pretty bulky.
Depending on how long you're going out, it's an easy item to shed like some room.
Okay.
In your pack, if you got the room, why not take it? Because you may need it. But if you don't got the room, then ditch that.
Yeah. Because I think people get tunnel visioned in on, like, the only reason I brought it up was because I think people get like hyper focused on like what kind of camo they're wearing, when in reality it's like the best way to really, if you're trying to be concealed, the best way to do it is with some kind of ghillie, like something that's actually going to break you up. Because
yeah, and if you're taking a camo net anyways, like if a camo net, like a large camo net, just throw it on over top. Like if you're having to do like a little staging area to wait for the lighting to get right or whatever it may be, everyone can just get underneath the camo net.
Just kind of tuck in.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So, but I mean, the ghillie suit's definitely an option. Like we had them and we would use them for certain missions, but like our sniper teams used them a whole lot more than we did.
Right.
Those guys pretty much, I think they had to have them at all times, but at least it seemed like they're either that or they just wanted to look cool. I don't know. But knowing their section leader, they probably just had to have them at all times.
Right. So another thing is moving on is good boots.
Oh yeah.
Dude. Invest in boots. I can't.
It's gonna break you off like first thing. That your feet for this kind of stuff is like
It's like one of your most important assets.
Yeah, it should be like treated like the most prized possession, like, because I don't know, it's like it's just so important to keep your feet like in good health. Otherwise, you're gonna fail right out the gate. Like if your feet are destroyed. But
oh yeah, no, and you know, good boots cost money. They're expensive, but it's worth it. Cry once, buy once, or buy once, cry once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that I've always, well, not always, like early in my career, I just used like issued boots, and then I had so many guys be like, dude, I would have like, be like, oh dude, my feet are killing me or whatever. Or like, I never really got blisters. I've never been my feet are pretty like tough, I guess, and they don't really get blisters, but like the arches of my feet and stuff would hurt. And then I had like guys with more experience, like, dude, it's because you're just using the crappy like USGI boots. Like you need to get some better boots. And so once I kind of discovered, like, started figuring out what worked for me, that's like stuck with me, and I've like figured out the type of boot that works for me and like for like how I distribute my weight. But I like a lightweight boot that's got some like good ankle structure and like a good sole, like, but something that's not. I hate like heavy boots, big clunky, heavy, bulky boots. I like a more kind of athletic fit boot. But yeah, I mean, it's different for everyone. Having Gore-Tex is really nice if you live in a wet area. Like all my boots have Gore-Tex now, like just because we're here in Alaska and it's either wet or snowy. So Gore-Tex is the way.
Yep.
And then on that, you know,
Gore-Tex rain gear as well.
Yep. If you live in California, then it probably isn't as big of a deal because you guys barely get any rain. But I guess it depends on where you're at in the state.
You just have a small like windbreaker / rain like waterproof jacket. Works good. You can pack those down super tight. Honestly, I would say have those regardless. Like we have those. Pretty much all our guys are running now. Yeah. And they work fantastic. And it says it's just water resistant, but those things are like pretty much waterproof, like the ones that we got.
They'll eventually get saturated, you know. Yeah. But so will Gore-Tex. I think a lot of people like the only full-on rain-proof stuff you can get are like those rubber.
Yeah,
and that's not
those things are called the something Helens. Helly Hansen.
Yeah, Helly Hansen.
Yeah, Helly Hansen. It's like, dude, I'm not gonna be out on a fish boat.
The rainboat, the fish boat special.
Yeah.
Oh man.
IFAKs.
Yeah, individual first aid kit.
Very important to have that. Everyone needs to have that on their person. I think having like an actual med bag that goes in someone's ruck. It doesn't actually have to be like a bag, but like a bigger
kit,
med kit, for whoever's like your, designated medic.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that there's more, but I mean, and then everyone will have their own individual IFAK as well. So, and
this is more of like an SOP thing, but it's smart to make sure that everybody has their IFAK in roughly the same spot.
Yeah.
If everybody knows, everybody you're working with, like going back to coordination, like coordinating with your team, choose a spot. Be like, hey, we're going to wear this on our left side, or hey, we're going to wear this small back, or this is going to be, dangling underneath our chest rigs. However you want to do it, it helps a lot for aid. So if you go down, you're not having to roll somebody around to find their kit, or, having to sacrifice your own kit, because IFAKs, if you're like working in a team and you go down, your IFAK is supposed to be used on you.
Yeah.
It's for you. It's your individual first aid kit. So you either use it for self-aid, or a buddy uses your kit for aid on you. So for them having to like dig around and find a kit, or revert to using their own, because in the moment they're like a little bit panicked and stressed and time crunch, and they can't, for whatever, you mix in low light and all that stuff. Like it's important not to deviate from having it in roughly the same spot.
Yeah.
So,
gloves, important. I don't wear them all the time. I'm going to be completely honest. When I was like doing this in the military, I never wore gloves, but
yeah,
I always hated gloves, but they've started to grow on me, I guess. I don't mind them anymore.
You know, it's weird. I didn't wear gloves very much either. Like you had guys overseas that always wore like the Oakley gloves like religiously. You had those Oakley gloves with like the knuckles.
Yeah, it's crazy talk.
Those things
Just
pissed me off.
Punisher gloves, dude.
Yeah.
It's like a Punisher. What's a glove, dude?
It for some reason
It's that glove.
it just made me think of that scene from the new Batman movie where he just punches the ever living crap out of Gordon, I think, or whoever. I don't know. I haven't actually seen the movie, but I've seen that scene a bunch. Just admit. But anyways, yeah, those gloves pissed me off. But where I really grew to love gloves was actually post army, in the doing plumbing and pipe fitting. Like you have to wear gloves, dude, doing plumbing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you work with some weird, nasty stuff. Like I used to just not wear gloves, and then I would have like old foremen and stuff be like, dude, you're working in you're working in a hospital right now. Like, do you realize that a lot of these pipes have like weird crap in them? Like you need to have gloves on. I was just like, that's true. So then I started wearing like gloves. I just like really like gloves that offer a lot of dexterity. I hate big bulky gloves. You know,
I'm the same way. I need to be able to like feel stuff.
In the Arctic environment, if you're in the cold, just have some like mittens to throw on over. Like that's what we always did. So you have like or at least I did. I had like thinner gloves that I can feel stuff with. And then if my hands get cold, you just throw on like your Arctic mittens.
Yeah.
Just kind of warm up your old fingers for a little bit.
Face paint. We kind of hit that in the last podcast. Make sure test out different face paint so it's going to work for you. Actually go out and like get some sweat flowing while you have it on. Otherwise, you're not going to know how good it's actually going to do when you're sweating and you're out in the heat and you're actually working in it. And then application, obviously, you want to be able to get something that you aren't just going to be miserable with applying to your face. So whether that's because like I said, I don't like the paint stuff that's like paint, you know, because that stuff just literally dries up. And
yeah, like clown face paint,
almost like that stuff. They have like literally some guys rocked it. They were like, oh, it's so much easier to put on. And it's like, yeah, it's way faster to put on than this other stuff, and you're not just tearing up your face doing it. But it also, like, as soon as it dries out, it's like, dude, you got like, you look like
it's like tree bark on your face.
Yeah. Yeah, you look like a creature.
How to?
Yeah. Do you love me? Navigation. Yeah. Navigation and signaling. We'll just kind of breeze through this really quick because we kind of already hit all this. Well, the navigation portion, but like you're gonna want compasses.
Get yourself a compass.
Yeah, get yourself a compass.
Kind of sound like something Theo Vaughn would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get a compass. You know, the sooner you get a compass, the better y'all be. And
yeah. Your AO maps. This could be various maps depending on how big of an area you're kind of cruising into.
The old objective maps.
Yeah,
like
your imaging.
If you've applicable.
If you've been able to like fly drones or whatever to get some like leadership reconnaissance on the objective prior to going in, or whatever. GPSs are really important. It makes it a whole lot faster and a lot smoother than just going all old school, but you can totally go old school if you want.
And you might have to. GPS could possibly compromise your position because you have to communicate with like a satellite,
Yeah.
And depending on who you're against, if you're against like a tier 1 kind of conventional fighting force, like China, Russia, America, something like that, they could potentially, they absolutely could find you by you using GPS. So
yeah,
just straight up track you. So you might not be able to use it. And then on that, GPS devices, a lot of them, especially phones passively communicate a lot with like satellite or cellular towers or whatever. So that's something to consider too. Even if you have your GPS with you, but it's turned off, it might still be communicating. So you might not want to bring it with you, depending on what you're doing. So just think about that.
Yeah. And you also got to think about the fact that GPS is run on batteries, and so do night vision and all that stuff. And depending on what's going on, batteries might not be as readily available as you would think. But and then as far as signaling, not everyone needs to have these things, but I think the VS17 panel is a good thing for pretty much everyone to have in their ruck, which is, if you don't know what it is, it's basically like a very vibrant orange or pink kind of panel. Mm-hmm. Some of them are both, and then some of them have like different like coatings. I don't know. Pretty much always orange and pink.
Yeah, they're usually like, and it's usually two-sided.
Yeah.
Like you've got like one side
orange, one side pink, yeah.
Yep.
Star clusters and smokes, if you got them, sweet. If you don't, try to find someone that does. No.
There's other things you can do. I mean, smoke grenades, there's actually quite a few companies that sell them for the commercial market. You know, you can get them, and they seem pretty good. I mean, they're not going to make as much smoke as like actual, you know, smoke grenades.
I think actual smoke grenades, like your what are those, M80s? Is that, or no, not M80, the M.
I can't remember the nomenclature.
Doesn't matter. But the ones that the military issue obviously are like regulated. I think, like the amount of smoke that comes out of them are not. It's not allowed in the civilian market.
Yeah, there's weird stuff like that.
But anyways, chem lights. Everyone should have chem lights, IR and colored. Tracers. Not a bad idea to have some tracers.
This is more, I mean, it's pretty specific, but like I would usually have a mag of tracers.
Yeah, team leaders and stuff like that. It's smart to have some tracers, because you can, if you need to do like support by fire elements and stuff like that, it's
just make sure you mark that mag, like mark it. Yeah, definitely. Like I always had like a thing of duct tape on it and I had like writing on it, but for low light it was like a colored.
I was about to say, I always did like orange duct tape.
Yep.
Because they were usually orange tipped, so I always like to do like orange duct tape at the bottom.
I did yellow, but yeah, it was you got to mark it, because if you accidentally jam that thing in, no, I mean if you're down to it and you got to use it, can you use it? Sure, but yeah, they're cool though, because you can, like, especially for air assets, like that's the biggest thing we would deal with it, is like if you were in an OP, you were communicating with like aircraft, you'd be like, hey, you know, when it was daytime, or like low light. Honestly, a lot of times you use like a your IR device, or like one of those IR pins, you know.
Yeah,
those things work great for that. But yeah, you could just jam in hey, I'm gonna launch a tracer at it, or like for, you know, you can use it too for like team movement stuff. Like you can be like, hey, you can have it in your SOP to be like, when you see our tracer fire, go ahead and lift fire or whatever.
Yeah,
so
definitely
there's all kinds of things.
A mirror for like signaling and stuff like that. That's a good thing for everyone to have on them. Plus, it helps for putting on your face paint too, so you're actually doing it right while you're out in the field. Because, like I said, you're gonna have to apply it more than probably just the one time that you go out, unless you're doing like a pretty short mission. Mm-hmm. But mirrors are good for lots of things. You can start fires and do all sorts of crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, they're good to have, and it's nice for like self-aid stuff too. Like if you like, I don't know, I always wear contacts and stuff like that, and like if stuff gets in my eyes, it's like a problem. So it's nice to have a mirror to pull out so you can get stuff out of your eyes a little bit easier and stuff like that.
Hygiene, man.
Yep.
Which, did you put a hygiene kit in this packing list?
Dude, I didn't, but we'll just talk about it right now. So you want to have, you know, along with all of this, have a good hygiene kit.
Baby wipes.
Yeah, baby wipes are a lifesaver. Do unscented.
Yeah.
Don't get anything with like anything weird smelling. Steven talked about it last time, but you don't want to have like smelly deodorants, you know?
No, you don't want anything. You want everything unscented.
Yeah.
No fragrance.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, toothbrush.
Yep.
Brush them teeth, man, because
I always had one of those little like compact toothbrushes that like it's really small, and then you pull it out and turn it around and stick it back in the handle.
Yeah, it picks up your motivation too, being able to keep your grill clean, because it at least makes you feel like you're still a human out there.
Yeah,
not just an animal.
Just becoming a Yeti.
Yeah, become a Yeti, which some people might like that. So it's like whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Yeah. But just stay. I don't know. Stay clean. It's better for your health too. Like,
Yeah.
you got to maintain.
Take care of your feet. Take care of your teeth.
That's like we both our dad is a pilot, and he's worked around airplanes for a long time. I mean, his whole career. So we both spent time in working. Growing up, like before we went into the military when we were young, we'd go, help the mechanics, and both of our main job was like cleaning the airplanes.
Yeah.
And he always said, why we keep these airplanes so clean, because his standards are very, very high. Like, you go up into the gear and you clean everything. And so he's like, why? Because I always thought, like, man, like every other airplane I've ever seen is like super dirty. Why are we cleaning these things like
these
crazy?
These things are white.
Yeah.
They're painted white, and you can see every little
you can look up
soot.
into the exhaust and you're like, I can see myself in the reflection.
Yeah.
Like, we kept these things clean. And but he said the reason we keep them so clean is because we can find problems. We can find if something's broken, something that might go unnoticed, and you find that stuff cleaning. And it's true. Like, you'd find little things. Like, I'd be cleaning, I'd see something. I'm like, is this wire supposed to be connected? Like this tie wire. I'm like, yep, that's a safety wire for whatever. Like, yeah, absolutely good catch. And it's the same thing for you. Like,
I mean, I'm not saying, like, we're not saying to be a princess out there.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like, you gotta know when you gotta work and when you can actually sit down and take care of yourself. But
I think leaving time to really, like,
in the surf site, you're gonna have time. In the hide site, you're gonna have time. So, like, getting in, it's all business. You're not just lollygagging around, just being a little Nancy. But once you get positioned and you're solid, you've pretty much done what you need to do. Then it's like, okay, you got time. Like, when you're not sitting there observing, you're either sleeping or you're on the radio or you're able to take care of yourself. You're able to eat. You're able to do hygiene, all that good stuff.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've gotten like a cut, and then and had no idea, and then like notice it later, and stuff like that can really get you. Because if it gets nasty and gets infected, you're gonna be
sick or
get a fever, and you could become life threatening pretty quick, honestly.
So getting into sustainment, now that we were just talking about that, MREs are good. For this mission, we're saying 5 each for each person. Have 5. You can rock mountain houses. Just know that if you're rocking a mountain house, it takes water to make the mountain houses, so you're gonna have to pack more water. So that's just a consideration. And then as far as water, 5 quarts is your minimum. That's a quart a day, which isn't great, but it's not. You just don't want to be carrying so much weight that you're not able to move. So water gets heavy fast. Mm-hmm. So we always usually do right around that amount per mission for our stuff when I was doing it, and that's pretty much how we do it now when we're making our pack out lists for our guys. Lickies and chewies, we talked about that yesterday. That's a motivator. It's important to have, and let's be real, if you're only living on MREs, you're going to be pretty miserable and just pissed off, and you're going to look at the guy next to you that's like cracking into his Werther's Original or Jolly Ranchers or whatever he's got, and you're like, dang, dude.
Yep.
Good for that guy.
Yeah, usually you can bring some good sugar-packed stuff that that doesn't take up a lot of weight or space, and man, it's just nice.
Like a jar of peanut butter, like
seriously,
literally that'll brighten up the mood. Some bread, just stuff that'll help you keep that energy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Having a stove like a jet boil or something like that's pretty important. You got a lot of things you can do with that. I mean, depending on the mission, you may not be able to use it, but it's not a bad thing to have in there if you got the room for it, I think.
Yeah. It's also a good survival tool because you can purify water just by like boiling it.
Yep.
So that'll kill most germs and stuff like that, which on that, water purification. So having like, a lot of people use like water purification tablets because they don't take up like any space at all.
Which I think is smart to have, like, your water purification tablets, like everyone to have those in their ruck. That way, if they go black on water, they can, if they're on their own for whatever reason, they get separated, they can still get water to get out,
Yeah.
But I think ultimately someone should be carrying in some sort of like actual bigger unit of water purification, like to get water quicker and a more bountiful amount. Which, like for us, like when we were doing this, a lot of times we would either bring in like a 5-quart water blivet or a water bladder. Mm-hmm. And we'd have one filled and one not filled. Usually the filled one would go into the serve site with those guys. So that way they could replenish before they got out, basically. So when we were doing the movement out, everyone had enough water to, be good to go. And then your empty one, the hide site would just send out either a 1-man or a 2-man element out to go like to a nearby draw or whatever to get some water for themselves so they can replenish as well. Or you just send in one empty one, and the hide site does that to save weight on the movement end. The hide site does that at some point, and then when the serve site packs up and meets back up with the hide site, you can replenish everyone's water before making your movement. But
yeah, so getting into shelter now. I mean, a good sleeping system. It's important to have something that is going to keep you warm. Sleep. There's a lot. This is such a deep topic, but and we're honestly going to have to kind of breeze over it for today's episode. But I mean,
what? This episode's turning into a packing list.
Yeah, which is fine. I think it's a good. This is all really important stuff to kind of think about. But you want to have a sleeping system that you either want to have a sleeping bag that's ideal for the time of year that you're in, or you want to have a sleeping system that's got, like the military ones have like different seasons and you use like different bags together and,
Yeah.
And then with that, you want to have like a good bivy sack, something that's Gore-Tex and waterproof. It's going to keep you dry because you're not going to have time really to set up a tent.
No. And I mean, tents have their places, I think, within the reconnaissance world. Like there's times where that can be part of your packing list, but that would be more, I think that would be more like an extended, like you're doing recon on multiple objectives, and it's more effective to just stay out in the elements. And pretty much when you're using the tents is when you're like in between like 2 different zones of reconnaissance that you're planning on hitting. And then you can actually afford to like maybe have like a good night's sleep in a tent or something. But
yep,
I don't know. I feel like we never did it. I don't think it's really needed unless you just like.
We didn't ever do it either, unless we were doing Arctic stuff. Then we had those Arctic tents, but
yeah,
it was always patrol bases and bivy sacks. So
those things are huge. So that's not happening. Those Arctic tents.
No, you got to pull them in on sleds, and they're crazy. But yeah, a good sleeping pad. You lose so much body heat through the ground, especially like in a colder environment.
Yeah, I would say here in the summer you don't need them at all because I never.
I don't know, man. I've been a lot more comfortable on a sleeping pad, not because of the softness, because all my pads are just they don't offer any cushion. They're just like, but having that thermal barrier, even in the summer, you just stay way more cozy. Even if it's like 70 degrees, but the ground's just a stealer of your soul, dude. It'll just suck your
I know
away.
how it works. I'm just saying, like, if you want to save on a low rim, I guess like comfort is important, but I don't.
They just don't take up really any room. You can just strap them on your pack somewhere. You know what I mean? Like mine, it was always just external to the bag.
I just hate them.
Why?
I don't know, dude. Maybe it's like the 82nd Airborne in me that just despises them.
When we were making our list, Steven's list said puss pad. I was like, what? Dude, we swore by him, man. Like you had a sleeping pad. Like that was just like, it's just such a different perspective.
All the brag guys are like, yeah, that's trash right now. Listening to this podcast, and then
I'm telling you right
everyone
now,
outside of that's probably like, no, you get to have your pad,
dude. I'm telling you right now, if you're doing stuff up here, it's nice to have a sleeping pad.
But I've done so much outdoor stuff up here in the summer. I've never used a pad.
Really?
Yeah.
You sleep good?
Yeah, I sleep fine.
All right. Well,
it's all about that sleeping bag, though. You got to have a good sleeping bag.
yeah. I mean, you can do a lot too. You can lay down pine boughs and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's something that works great.
Which is what you would do in the surf site 100%.
Yeah. And that is, as long as you are up as long as you are up off the ground, then keep my wife's name out your as long as you're up off the ground, you're good. I don't know. It reminded me of it when I said the up somehow. You just gotta be up off the ground.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, sleeping bags, they're fine. Long story short.
Yep. Poncho.
Don't listen to what the 80-second brainwashes you to do.
How did it? I mean,
we just did not use them.
They just don't take up any space, though.
It was like frowned upon, super hard to use them.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Which that might just be a brainwash thing of me now.
Dude, that's just some weird, like, hardcore, no reason stuff.
Yeah,
you're gonna bring your puss pad. That's trash. And you're just like, well.
Dude, I remember I tried to pack it as a new guy one time, and my platoon sergeant just literally came up, and I had it like strapped on the top of my ruck, and he just grabbed it and just chucked it out in the field. He was like, "Get this out of here!" I was like, "Oh no, dude."
So, dang, dude, yeah, it's all making sense now. The ponchos are one of my favorite.
Oh, dude, they're the
issued
like
items.
One of the best issued items. Them and the poncho liner.
Like the old woobs, dude, the old woobie.
Which we're on both those right now, poncho and poncho liner. So
have them, and you can
ponchos are so universal though. Like you can literally you can use them for an actual poncho, which is actually pretty rare that I actually did it that way.
Yeah, I don't think I've. I think maybe one time I did.
Dude, my hood just stays permanently tied up. Like,
oh yeah,
if you know what I'm talking about, like all the military guys know, but like as like guys who don't mess with it, you can tie up the hood and make it so it like turns into a tarp, so it doesn't
just
actually have a hole in
a little man bun.
Yeah, and then literally that's what you use to make the surf site. For one, you need that in order to make your surf site to put over top of the stick or the the limbs that you chop up to put over top, and then you put dirt on top of that, and then use vegetation to cover that up. Then after that, but you could also like do like your some random stuff. But like if you're dealing with water, you can ball your ruck up inside of that, and you can make a little life raft that like floats.
Catch air in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like you just cruise, like literally it'll like support like you can like pretty much get up on top of it and like have your legs in the water to paddle. But
you can use it as a tent. I've done that tons of times where you literally just like A-frame, string it up, use a little 550 cord, and you can do it in like minutes.
Oh yeah, no time at all.
And we want to make some videos and stuff on it because dude, the poncho is just like and you can be so comfortable. Like if we had time, if we were going to be in a patrol base or something, and you could actually set up like a little shelter.
Tents as well. Who was that we were just?
That's what I just said.
Well, no, I'm not talking about just like you're talking about just a lean-to, but like
no, like
we were literally talking about. I was watching that video of that guy who actually turned it into
where you take like a post, set the post in the middle.
Okay.
Like we did that stuff too, like kind of TP style a little bit. But I was saying like A-frame, like you just take like 550 cord as your spine or like your crest, and then you just and dude, you can fit two guys under that.
I just always did lean-to.
Lean-to works great too.
I say it's hard to beat the old lean-to.
It's because, dude, it's that weird. Anytime we did the lean-to stuff, you just get that weird. Because I was stationed up here, so you just get that dumb Alaska rain that makes no sense, and it's just like it just comes in and taps on you somehow, and you're like, "How are you getting in here?" That light just kind of.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's like you're just in a weird mist, and you're like, "How am I wet?" So if you, I'd usually like to have it on both sides if I could, but. Yeah. The lean-to way is so nice because it's fast. It's so fast.
And then you can connect ponchos together as well for like bigger shelters.
Button them together.
That's if you just really want to be like making a little Pogeville, but that's all right.
Dude,
I'm just kidding.
No,
it's just seriously. A gypsy camp, dude. Real quick. What where was I going? Where were we at? Waterproof bags.
Yep.
Have a bunch of them. Have extras of them if you can. Like,
Yeah.
they're useful. You can use them for a lot of stuff.
If you live somewhere that's very wet, then you want to, like me, like when I pack my ruck, all of my stuff is in waterproof bags, like little compact waterproof bags.
Even if you're not in somewhere wet, because waterproof bags work really well for like game as well. Like if you end up having to like, all right, let's get a little extra food. This is we're gonna be out here a little longer than we plan, and you get like a rabbit or something on a snare.
Yeah,
dude, you just bag that thing up, throw it in your ruck, so you're not just getting weird bloody rabbit all over your your stuff.
True. Very true.
But
it's a good way to organize too, because like you can have a bunch of different sizes, and you can like I just take duct tape and stick it on there and write on there like, clothing or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can have all your stuff kind of organized, which is pretty cool.
I always like to be pretty well organized. And then that way you can like keep your priority items up top and your stuff that's like more comfort and like when I got time to do it down in the bottom.
Yep.
Of your ruck. Site building tools. We covered this in the last podcast some, but like e-tools or a 2 to 3 foot shovel or just a cut down, big shovel that's going to be roughly 2 to 3 feet long.
So this is stuff for building your serve site, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna dig in,
hand saws. You can either do like the folding saw, which is what I currently have, or you can do those the chains that have handles on either side.
Which one do you think is more quiet? Or is it pretty negligible?
I think your folding saw is more universal because you can do limbs and stuff like that a whole lot better with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you need to if you cut down, let's say we cut down a spruce tree to use, you can knock off the limbs with that saw, no problem, like the folding saw. Where the chain one, it would be, you could still do it, but it's just like, all right, I gotta wrap this around. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Where the other one, you can just literally go down the line, I think it'd be faster.
Yeah.
Or you can, like I said, you can carry a hatchet, which then you're kind of like banging on stuff. So I think the little handsaw is probably your best bet. That's what we got. And then some guys got those like weird chain ones. That would be more like if you're, it may not be bad to have both, honestly. Because like I've chopped down some big trees with those handheld ones.
Yeah. Well, they're small too. You can just kind of roll them up and stick them away. And if you don't need it, then cool. But like the way you always have that handsaw pretty readily available, kind of like on the outside of your ruck. So
yeah,
that one you could just be your kind of go-to. And then if you need to,
and it keeps people from like taking too big a trees, like for
if you want to turn into Hitman on trees, then you can get the old the old chain out.
Yeah. That would be like more like if like things got really bad and you just end up getting stranded out there and you're kind of, it goes from like a reconnaissance mission more to like a let's just survive out here. Multi-tool, it's good to have for everything.
Yeah. That honestly that should just be in uniform stuff, because I think you should have a multi-tool. It's a good survival tool.
It's good to have in your chest rig, like why not?
Yeah.
It's good to have that kind of stuff. 550 cord, same thing. Just have a lot of it because you can use it for like setting up your hide site, hanging your camo net over top or whatever, or even your poncho. Stay out of the rain. And then like miscellaneous stuff, pen and paper, the write in the rains. Pen and paper is pretty solid.
Hard to beat. Got to have it. I mean, you got to be able to make notes. Like that's the whole thing. Like when you're on objective, you need to.
You're
take
not really
notes.
getting, if you're subsurface, you're not really getting rained on because you're underground. But you know what? You're gonna eventually get out of there, and then you might get rained on, and then depending on where you have it staged, like if it's just in your pocket or something, then it's gonna get wet. And that's what's good about the write in the range is that notebook can get like submerged in water, and you're still able to like kind of read it. Like it's you kind of have to pick through it and let it dry and whatnot, but they still work pretty good. You said notes on here. What does that mean?
Oh, I was just saying, like, having whatever you need to be able to make notes.
Okay.
But also that's referring to, like, it's probably smart to have your data, like your dope, like your data on personal equipment.
Yeah.
If you have any, whatever notes you've taken pre-mission of, like, the area, like if you already have some intelligence, just having, like, bring notes with you. And it's good to have, like, what I would usually do is I would have my little Write in the Rain notebook.
Yeah, I always had one that was, like, dedicated to, like, my personal stuff, like stuff that I didn't want to. And then I had an extra one that I just, like, wrote down, like, for like the actual mission. Yeah, the log.
But then, yeah, whatever your personal one is, exactly, I'd have, like, I'd keep my dope card up to date on that. And then I'd draw my, my range cards and stuff on there, like,
yeah,
figuring out, using a rangefinder and stuff to figure out, like, where things are, and starting to take notes and draw stuff out, draw, like, terrain and different things like that. So just that's what I meant.
Yeah, and, like, little cheat sheets as well for, like,
frequencies.
Okay. Yeah, frequencies and whatnot. Which,
if you're rocking, like,
don't get busted with it, because
always keep your frequency cards, like, separate. Like, don't keep it in your book. Keep it somewhere. We'd always put it in our shoulder pocket, or, like, honestly, we didn't have them for, that was all internal. Like, that was all like stuff. But if you had, like, certain things like that was sensitive, keep it somewhere you could destroy it. You should be able to destroy it very quickly. Like, like, honestly, like, eat it or something. That's what a lot of guys, like, that's kind of what you'd use, like, really thin paper. Just really not like the Write in the Rain paper. That'd be hard to eat. But yeah, I can eat that. But yeah, eat it, or, like, tear it or burn it. Burning it takes time, but yeah, just think about that. You don't want to get caught with, like, sensitive information, but notes that, and don't take it if you don't have to, but notes that are important to you, that help you, better achieve the mission.
Then we got additional comfort items that could be a lot of different things, but, like, what comes to mind off the top of my head right now is, like, you got those pop-up stools, which were nice to have. I never really got to use them because I was always in the serve site, and you just don't have the room to use those. But, like, in the hide site, if you're going to be a hide site guy, why not? Especially, like, your RTO or whatever, the guy that's going to be dealing with comms, like, to actually be sat up and, like, dealing with the radio and stuff makes it nice. You're able to kind of get after it. But fire starter, always important to have. Lighters, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and then
some sort of actual fire starter that, like, is easy to ignite, because if you are dealing with a lot of wet stuff, you're going to be having a hard time.
A little Ziploc bag filled with cotton balls that are soaked in Vaseline, not gasoline, but Vaseline, is a really good really good fire starter, and it's just, they last forever.
It's cheap, and you'll be able to find that stuff pretty much anywhere and be ready to go. We kind of covered 550 cord, but tape as well. Duct tape and electrical tape I like to carry. They're both kind of have their own purposes, and they work good.
Tape is so universal. Like, you can use it for so many things. You can use it medically. You can use it for tons of survival. Like, you can make shelters and stuff with it. I was
going to say medical tape's not a bad tape to have either.
Yeah. But you can, if you have, like, something break on your equipment, you can literally tape it back together. Like, it sounds dumb, but, like, we had when we were overseas, we had a dude bust his PEC 15 and his mount broke, and he literally just taped that thing to his rail.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not going to be zeroed anymore, but just to get it back, just tape the crap out of it, and it was still, like, pretty much attached too. So, there's just weird
also
things.
Also, tie down
like
your
that.
stuff.
Yeah, tie down your stuff for sure.
Like, have tie downs on your rifles and stuff, because things happen. Flashlight, headlamp. If you can, have red light capabilities, because it's harder to see under night if you are having to turn on your flashlight, and that's nice to have in the serve site for sure. Like, being able to, like, okay, I can't find this. Usually your eyes kind of, like, acclimate to, like, you're just hanging out in a little dark area, so I don't really have that many issues with it. But every once in a while, it's nice to be able to, like, okay, I gotta, like, really quick try to find this, and it's not gonna, as long as you've done the serve site right, it's not gonna, like, come out of the serve site, like, shining a little red light in there, as long as it's, like, low lumen, like dim,
Red light doesn't transmit very well. Like, it doesn't travel long distances. It's really hard to identify. It's also hard to catch moving. It's just it's part in the low light spectrum. It's really, red light's really good. But so yeah, make sure whatever light you get has red light capability.
But then have white light capability as well. 'Cause
yeah,
there's times where,
like medical, like if you have to do aid, red light's not going to work. You're not going to see blood. So there's times red light's absolutely trash.
Yeah.
So, and on that, you might need to use light for maps. So make sure that your maps will work with red light.
Yeah.
Because
it's like there's like specified maps for that, like red light maps. So make sure that when you get your maps, they work for that. Have a watch.
Yeah, this one's huge because people don't wear watches anymore. People are used to their phones. Their phone will tell you the time. So wearing watches has kind of fallen out of habit for our society, at least.
I don't have mine on, and I feel naked without it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I
was literally walking out of the house, and I was kind of running late, and I was like, dude, I don't have my watch on. Like, I noticed as I'm like literally locking my door, and I'm like, I about went back, but I was like, nah,
yeah,
I'm out. Like, but like legitimately, it bothers me that much not having it. I feel so weird without it.
Yeah, and you can get pretty, like, you got guys that go like get crazy and start getting like these high-end Suunto GPS watches. Just keep in mind, like, GPS might not be the best way. Sometimes it's good to have just an analog watch, something that, like,
they last for so much longer too. Like,
yeah,
in a time like this, like, one battery's gonna last you for years,
Oh yeah,
and
like,
then
most of these watches, like the watch I'm wearing right now, is a Winfield MT2, and it's got really good lume on it. It's got heavy lume, so like, it's gonna work great at nighttime.
You're always gonna know the time, yeah.
And then also, it's got a 10-year battery, so like, this thing's gonna run forever. It's super accurate. You can also run a mechanical watch that actually has
whines.
It whines as you wear it and use it, and it doesn't ever need batteries ever. Like, it'll work forever unless it needs like service.
They slowly go off time, right?
But it depends on. I mean, if you buy like a cheap, like if you buy like a, like an $80 cheap like Seiko automatic watch, it's gonna probably plus or minus like 30 seconds.
Like a day or what?
Yeah, a day. So you have to keep tabs on it. But if you buy a really nice one, like something with like an ETA movement, like a Swiss movement, like a Marathon makes fantastic, like, heavy duty mechanical watches. I mean, they're expensive. You'll spend $900 on it, but it's going to be a beautiful timepiece. First of all, I think it's called the GSAR, the Global Search and Rescue, I think is what it stands for. It's actually got tritium tubes in the hands and on the dial.
Oh, dang.
So that's its low light is tritium, which is sick. But yeah, their automatic is it's expensive, but I think it's the plus or minus is very low. It's like 5 seconds. So
oh dang,
which is pretty you can also get it in quartz, which, like, a quartz watch is a battery powered watch. It's got a little piece of quartz in it, and then battery sends power to it, and the frequency kind of powers your watch. It's kind of weird, but modern quartz watches have 10-15 year batteries on them. So honestly, you can get that same Marathon GSAR watch in quartz, and it's like $300 cheaper. And again, it's going to last for, as long as you take care of it. The battery in it's going to last as long as your tritium tubes do, which is like 15 years. So that's a long time. And it's going to be accurate. So quartz watches are just more accurate. The only downside is that they can have more issues, like, sometimes the hand can accidentally rub on the crystal, or sometimes, or like on the quartz. And sometimes you can have, like anything that can, like, heavy magnets or anything that can affect like battery stuff. You got to think about that, but that's pretty what ify, I guess.
Yeah.
So But a good watch. You want it to be accurate. You want it to be reliable and analog, in my opinion. I mean, you can get good digital watches. It's hard to beat the old Casio, man. The old G-Shock. It's hard to beat it. It's a good watch. But just have a good watch. I think people are falling out of practice with having a good timepiece on their wrist.
And if you're just anti-wrist, just have a watch attached to your kit somewhere, because that works too. Dude,
yeah, or just be super just epic and just pull a pocket watch out of your plate carrier. I would highly respect that. Like, what time is it? Hold on a second. I'd be like, yo, are you the master of the battlefield right now?
Yeah.
What in the World War I is going on?
It also doubles as a signaling mirror.
Yeah. And then you can have the you could have like pictures of your family in it. No way, dude. If you do that, then it's absolutely mandatory to carry a smoking pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically just become Captain Pierce before you know it. Like,
yep.
Or Price, I mean. Pierce.
Who is Captain Pierce?
That's my brother. All right.
Somehow that just took us down.
Yeah, it did. Mission failed. We'll get him next time. All right, so now we've made it through our packing list. And again, this is just a rough, kind of generalized, like just things to think about. And I think it's really important to go over, because it's like we can talk about the reconnaissance mission, talk about what it's going to be, but like a lot of people get hung up on like, dude, I just don't know what to get. So we kind of wanted to go through just really basic stuff. It needs to be tailored to you and where you live, and that all should be obvious at this point.
Yeah, but this just gets you thinking about some different things that you might not have thought of previously.
Yeah. So we're going to just kind of wrap up today by kind of breaking down a little scenario that we have. And it's a pretty outlandish scenario, but
that's all right,
this is basically what it is. So we have economic collapse in the United States. And so basically the continental U.S. is not concerned about Alaska anymore. So our supply chain just gets completely cut off. So food shortages, resource, lots of shortages for resources. Russia's starting to pick their, kind of peek around and be like, we might go take Alaska back. So that's like on the horizon. And then basically there's a rogue element in the area that is basically trying to take over and control by force all the existing resources. And they're doing it in like a tyrannical kind of dictatorship fashion.
Yeah. It's very selfishly driven. They're
kind of a warlord.
Yeah.
Kind of
the Negan.
Kind of the Negan. If you're a
the Negan
Walking
of the
Dead.
K-Pen, dude.
Yeah.
The K-Pen Negan, dude.
The K-Pen No, dude. I don't know. We're moving on. So that's the reality. That's the scenario. And so you're going to try to get in there, and this group's been kind of like lording over the area and forcing things to happen, and kind of like basically trying to set up their own like rule of law, and it's just ridiculous. So we need to get in there and figure out. We know where their compound is, their main compound. We want to figure out how much personnel they have there, how much assets they have, what kind of vehicles, how much driving in and out of there is going on. Is there any local patrols? What routes are they using?
Yeah, and other individuals within the community that are also like, we may not know if they're working with them or not working with them. You try to figure out who all is wrapped into, like, who do they have? Who is what? Yeah, basically their resources and everything that they have. So not a planned attack, nothing like that, which you can use reconnaissance for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just going to be kind of a little breakdown. So first thing, if you're not concerned about it, obviously you're going to, if you got drone capabilities, you can fly in, kind of scout it out, find good locations, like, because you can look on your map and be like, okay, this looks like a good spot based off of, the terrain and whatnot. Like, this looks like it's an overhead position. You're going to be able to, it looks like a good spot from the map, but you don't really know until you're actually able to physically put eyes on it. So if you're not worried about them like picking up your signal or anything like that, you're not dealing with like a big conventional army or anything like that, then you can use drones to go in and kind of scout things out, get pictures, and just intel for briefing the mission.
Yeah, which if you're not dealing with a large conventional fighting force, then more than likely you're not going to be able to be tracked by drone usage or anything. It's actually pretty complicated.
Yeah.
There's like softwares and stuff but you got to have a dude that's like very knowledgeable in that area in order to successfully pull that off.
Yep. So you do that. You come up with a mission briefing, basically talking about this is the route. You kind of come up with your route. You obviously give the packing list that we just gave. You're planning on a 5-day mission, but you've got a packing list that would allow you to go longer than that, because you got plenty of food and water. And then you basically, pull up big scale maps talking about, okay, this is where we're going. We're going to, stop short. Whatever you need to do in order to get there. You're going to look at all your LDAs that you cross, your linear danger areas,
which are like roads and big fields. And
so, yeah, and previously you're going to kind of like, okay, so you're going to plan your route where you're not being exposed too much, you're trying to stay out of open areas. So
you're not taking the path of least resistance. You're taking the path less traveled by.
Yes. Always take the path less traveled.
Yep.
Reconnaissance world and
real life
and spiritually.
Yeah.
But anyways,
what's the pilgrim or whatever?
What are you talking about?
What's that story? The
Pilgrim's Progress?
Pilgrim's Progress, dude.
How did I pull that out? Anyways, so yeah, so once you get your route planned, you've stepped off, you're ready to start beating feet. Your team leader, your alpha team leader, is going to be kind of running the formation, and this is where it's important to work on different movement tactics, like if you're going through thicker brush, knowing how to like either file down or whatever you prefer to do going through. We like to use the file, but because it works well, it's fast and you don't lose anyone that way.
Works great for small units too, which in this case, like we said earlier, this is kind of planned on 6 people. This is a really small element. Basically 4 people going out, 2 people staying back in your MSS, which is your mission support site, right?
Mission surveillance site or support site, either way. I mean,
okay. It's kind of like your home base.
And these aren't like reconnaissance like standards for names. Like this is just kind of like what we're calling them. They're used within certain units, but it's not like this is the standard. This is the golden standard.
Yeah.
Like you can call them whatever you want to call them, but basically you got your mission surveillance site, your hide site, and then you got your most forward, which is actually on the objective of your serve site. So what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so it's going to be up to the team leader, your most forward guy in the formation to kind of, all right, passing back hand signals and stuff, telling when to go into wedges or files, depending on what kind of terrain you're kind of moving through. And that's just going to have to be done. Like if you're working on this from a personal side, you got a group of guys, like work on that stuff, because the more fluent you are with that, that's like just not even a thought. Like it just happens. Nature. Yeah. Which you want to be there. That's like very ground level, like foundation work is working on that stuff. Same with the navigation portion. Like that needs to be, if you're doing this kind of stuff, you've already got that stuff dialed in. So then you get to your objective. You're trying to time it right. Like you need to know how fast your element's going to move, which you'll know that if you actually do this stuff a lot with your group of guys, you're going to know how fast you can move, a 10-mile movement or whatever it is. And then you come up on your serve site, you decide, okay, this is a good spot. You have one guy do overhead coverage. So he's going to be up in maybe like a higher position in case we were compromised. He can do like a support by fire while we try to bound back, and then he would be the last one to leave. But that guy it would be smart for him to like either ghillie up or throw a camo net on, so he's like more concealed. That would be like where you'd put your more long range platform if you have a guy in that position, and definitely want him suppressed, because if they start shooting at the group of guys that are building the serve site, that means that guy probably hasn't been seen yet, so he can start dropping rounds down while everyone else packs contact. Gets out of there. So, but yeah, so you're gonna have, whether you got your shovels or your e-tools, we'll say we're doing a subsurface, right, serve site.
Yeah.
You're gonna have your guys.
How far away do you think you need to be? I mean, I know this is terrain dictated, but from the actual objective, you want to be close enough to where you can potentially pick up like signals and stuff like that, but so not too close.
You're playing the game of you want to be close enough where you can pick up whatever frequencies they're running on, and you may not know that yet, depending on how much recon you've done on this group of people. This might be the couple times you've done this now. But if you know, like, okay, they run on higher frequencies, so I can pick them up at this range. Yeah. But we're running our radios on a lower frequency where we won't touch them with our frequency, but we can still reach our hide site.
Higher power and lower power. Yeah.
Yeah. Or not frequency. Yeah, high power. Yeah. So if they're running on a higher power and we can pick them up, and then we're running on lower power. Sorry, I'm using bad terminology.
No,
Andrew's probably like just turning into a seal as we speak. I don't know. Just it's hurting him. It's hurting his ears.
I know what you meant, but yeah.
I'm a dum-dum when it comes to radios. Anyways, so you got your high power, like your adversaries are running on higher power. Your serve site guys are running on a low power radio system that can't quite touch where they are, but it can touch where your hide site is. That would be like kind of the sweet spot, because then you're able to communicate back to your hide site. You're not able to get picked up by your adversaries, but then you can still, from the serve site, listen in to your adversaries.
Yep. Which you can use. It's pretty cool. Like, you can use SDRs and stuff like that too, which you can buy them for pretty cheap, and they make some pretty fantastic ones now. But yeah, you can figure out, you can listen to the spectrum of frequencies, and you can see, like, a lot of them have like displays where you can literally watch like what you can figure out what actual frequencies, what bands they're communicating on, and then through like some software and stuff, you're actually able to, in some cases, listen. And then in even more cases, which this would probably be something after the fact, because I don't think you're going to be in a serve site with a laptop trying to figure this out.
No, you can have a laptop.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You can do whatever you want.
That's legit. So you guys use like tough books then, probably? Yeah. It's Panasonic or whatever, tough books.
Yeah, so usually like how we would do it, we had a how did we do that again? Yeah, we did. So what we would do is we had a tough book in the serve site and a tough book in the hide site, and our tough book, or no, we didn't. What we would do is, that's how we did it. Yep, I remember now. So we would take pictures. We'd have our camera, and at nighttime, they would send a 2-man element up to us, and we would give them our mic or whatever, the memory card. We would hand them off the memory card. They would beat feet. They would put in their tough book, and they were able to send those pictures back to the MSS.
Nice.
Because they had, I don't know how they were, like what they were using. They're using some radio that could send pictures, basically.
Right.
So I don't know how that was working, but
yeah, no, there's digital radios and stuff that'll send out like
and then they would come back, give
textile stuff.
Yeah, like they would have, basically we had like 2 memory cards that we would just do that every day with. Like they would come in at night and do that. But long story short, you could do that from within the serve site. You're not really actually sending pictures anywhere, but at least you're able to, like, okay, I can pull up and look at like locations. That's where you're getting to, right?
Yeah, like figuring out where.
So like when they transmit on the radio, you can look on, like you can pull it up on a map and figure out, okay,
yep,
it's in this location. I'm not sure if you need
can
internet
actually
for
listen. You can literally listen to them and see what they're saying too. Like even if there's a
Do you need internet for that?
that's a question I wouldn't know the answer to. I mean, I think you could use I believe you can use the SDR to figure out roughly. You can use the SDR with some other listening devices to kind of semi-triangulate where they're at, and you can figure out roughly where it's coming from. But the biggest thing is you can see what parts of the spectrum they're communicating on, because you'll see these like spikes pop up. It's kind of hard to explain, and we'll talk more about this later. I don't want to get too in-depth into radio stuff right now.
Yeah, but long story short, you want to kind of place your serve site in a location where your low power stuff's going to reach your hide site, and your SDR, right? Mm-hmm. Your SDR is going to be able to reach their high power frequency.
Listen to it. Yep.
And if they're running under low power, then it might not work.
Yep.
Like, that's just
the
nature of the beast.
You can still use.
So you're back to the old school ways.
Yeah, observation. You brought up taking pictures, so you want to like get pictures of stuff.
Yeah, pictures, which we didn't really cover the specialty items, but obviously spotting scopes, thermals, pictures or cameras, and
they actually make spotting scopes too that you can put a little memory card in and take pictures with the spotting scope.
That's where your water purification for the hide site guy, one of the hide site guys is going to be carrying a actual water purification thing, because they're not huge, but they're not really that small either, and there's no point for the serve site guy to have that. But they're going to have all of their observation equipment. So
yeah,
potentially a laptop or a tough book or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you can do that. But anyways, going back to building it, you have one guy overwatch, 2 guys would be digging. You're going to build it big enough for the 2 guys to fit in it, lengthwise laying down, and then wide enough for them to lay side by side. And you can go a little bigger if you got room. And then deep enough, you're going to try to make it deep enough where they can sit up, but it's probably not going to happen. So as long as they can lay in there and they can kind of move around, you're going to be solid. You're going to have the other guy, one guy farther back. He's going to be getting tree limbs set up that can just span across the serve site itself. You're going to build a little viewport window, cover it up with your sticks, run your poncho over it. The dirt that you dug out of the hole, you put back up over top of the poncho. And then you take vegetation, whether that's leaves, pine needles, depending on where you're at. You bring it up there. You could even plant like bushes and stuff. Like I remember there was a time we like literally grabbed like a baby tree and planted it on top of our serve site. And yeah, you can get kind of creative with it, make it so it doesn't look like anything.
You're obviously trying to do that. I mean, time is a concern.
Yep.
Because you want to do it under cover of darkness, which if you're up here is really short. And then also
depending on what kind of ground you're digging into, it could be tough.
Yeah.
Like if you're dealing with like
you don't want to be making a bunch of noise either for too long.
So and like we said, if you can't quite get a hide site, or if you can't quite get your serve site subsurface, you can do a ranger grave, which is basically just digging slightly in, bringing the dirt up along the sides, kind of putting some natural vegetation stuff up on those dirt berms, and then you're down in kind of a hole, but your top's open, and then you just run a camo net over the top of you in those positions. So
nice.
You'd be good to go. And then your hide site kicks back. They, try to find a kind of like a cluster of trees or bushes or whatever there may be to kind of conceal their position. Tie up a camo net.
Mm-hmm.
And you could even run a poncho underneath the camo net, so that way you're still waterproofed underneath.
Nice.
Their RTO is gonna run a directional antenna off their a radio system that's running on higher frequencies, but you're going to be directional back to your MSS.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically you're playing a game of telephone back to the MSS. You're receiving information from the serve site, and then you're able to then push that information with higher frequencies back to the MSS, and the MSS is able to actually, like, within like a base setting, like start putting pieces together.
Yeah, which it's pretty cool because directional antennas, just a quick explanation on those. So most radios use omnidirectional antennas, which just send out like basically it's the equivalent of like dropping a pebble in like a lake, and you see all the rings go out.
Yeah.
So if you're within that radius, then drop my phone. If you're within that radius, then you're going to pick up the signal. But with directional antennas, you can actually point your signal. It basically shoots your signal in a certain direction, and it's pretty. It's more like a cone.
Yeah.
Like it will like fan out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean
because it's a signal. It's a wave. It's a sound wave basically. But you can point it in a direction. So this is where like navigation and stuff would come into play. You need to know exactly where you're pointed at. But it's nice because if you have adversaries on either side of you or like around you, they could be pretty close to you and not pick it up, as long as they're not in between you and your target. So, it's very effective, and directional antennas is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing that, I think people need to take more advantage of.
Yeah, and learn about. It's another thing that you're just going to have to learn about in order to get good at it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. But also, before we kind of breezed by it, but the movement, if you're crossing LDAs and things like that, know how to do LDA crossings. So make sure you have security pointing each way of the road. Send one at a time crossing, and then pull security on the opposite side for the other guys crossing, basically. Know about seals. Stop, look, listen, smell.
Yep.
Stop, look, listen, smell. Yeah. That's gonna do that a lot. Like anytime, as the guy who's leading the element, if you feel like let's stop and do seals, do it. It's smart. Like we said before, smelling good's not a natural thing, so you can smell people. Like you're gonna, like if you've been out in the woods long enough, like you're straight up gonna be able to like, I'm near someone. You know? So,
or like if smelling a fire, like we must be near a little campfire or something like that, or there's all kinds of stuff.
Which if you're dealing with a group of people that are like feel like they've dominated the area, they're probably not gonna be. They're not gonna be quiet about it. They're gonna be very like boastful and feel.
They're gonna be romping around.
Yep. So use that to your advantage. Be the sneaky little snake in the grass, dude.
Yep.
But yeah, once you get set up, obviously you're just sending communication back, try to gather as much information as possible. Vehicles going in and out, colors, size, how many people were in them, types of firearms that they're using, if they got handguns, rifles, whatever. If you can figure out what caliber they're running, figure out where they got everything. If they've got like a main hub where they're transmitting from, figure out where that's at. If they got a place where they store their food, figure out where that's at. If they got, ammo stored in a certain area, like just gather as much intel as possible so you know as much as you can about how they operate, and just do reconnaissance. Just be a recon man. Become the recon.
Become all that is recon. Yeah. So, and I'm guessing once you get this established, I mean, you could probably remain undetected for a long period of time and just passively collect intelligence.
Yeah, discipline, and like just because you're underground, you still got to be smart. You can't just be loud. Like you can get in there and kind of talk like this, like back and forth.
Yeah.
But
probably doesn't travel hardly at all because you're
you're underground.
Yeah.
So. Like I said before, the red light thing, you can
busting into laughter and doing weird stuff.
No, just like it's like what in the world? Yeah. Just getting super comfy in there. From like a training aspect, you can have fun with it. Like but like just make sure like okay, like when it's actually going down, like just to be disciplined. And same thing with you, like your lights and your IR lasers. Just like you just got to know, like. We're not doing that right now because it could completely ruin it and you're going to get people killed. So, you could stay there for a while. And then you mentioned last time, like if you wanted to, you could leave that location set up. The only problem is if they do patrols and stuff like that, they could potentially stumble upon it. And then you go back there and it's like, they're waiting for you.
Yeah, they could ambush you in there.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like you'd err on the side of caution for that.
Yeah.
Like, maybe destroy it.
Yeah.
And then do it in a way to where you'll be able to tell if it's been tampered with. Or you just somehow find a way to, like, I don't know. That's a whole other topic, but
put a tripwire in there so that
yeah.
way they could
I don't know. But yeah, I feel like err on the side of the caution, because if somebody finds that, that could be a pretty big
red flag.
Yeah.
Like it could be the doom.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's not a bad idea, like, if you're going to be hitting the same objective multiple times, to, like, hit a different area, like a different perspective of, like, what's happening, But yeah, as far as pack out, like, it's a little bit challenging, but it's the same thing in reverse. Your hide site guys are going to come up. They're going to help you out if they can. If for whatever reason they don't want to come up because it's whatever, I don't know why they wouldn't, but it's going to make it a whole lot faster if you put your security element back up on top of the ridge wherever he was at, and get him set in, and then have everyone kind of help. All right, obviously your rucksacks are already packed, ready to go, but, like, it's a little bit of a process because you got to pull that dirt back off, get your poncho back out, get those sticks up out of there. What I like to do is I would just cut them in half and toss them in the hole and then fill it in.
Nice.
And then take that same vegetation you had on top and just kind of hit it up. And usually you lose a little bit of vegetation, so you might have to pull some more to kind of build it back up. But I mean, eventually that vegetation you had, if you ripped it out of the ground or whatever, it'll probably die. It may not. You may have been successful in replanting it, but you'll be able to tell that there was, like, a disruption in the dirt and stuff there. But for the most part, I mean, if that ever gets found, it's like weeks later.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. And then you boogie out from there, you pack up your guy who's pulling security and then, start beating feet back home.
Yeah. Think about our alternative routes. Might not be smart to go back the same way you came, but sometimes it might. So
yeah, depending on how you, like, if it was just the only option for getting to the location, it might be the way that you have to go. But
yeah,
definitely having, alternative plans within your plan is always smart, having areas you can rally back on in case you're compromised, or, just having different
lots of
contingency plans.
Yeah,
within it. It's smart to have. I mean, you don't want to be, like, just over the top, but you also don't want to just overthink or like just be like, oh, we'll be all right, and then it ends up failing. So
right.
Never hurts to have plans.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good little breakdown. I mean, we were going to keep it kind of short and simple, as far as the just kind of walking through the process, because we already talked about this quite a bit in the last episode.
Yeah. It's more about what you pack and kind of the preparation behind what you need in order to actually successfully pull it off. Mm-hmm. I think between the two episodes, you kind of have a pretty decent understanding of how to do it, at least in this manner. I mean, there's other ways to do reconnaissance, like we said before, but as far as, like, actually zone reconnaissance on this group of people, it's a good way to do it. So
yeah. And it's going to be a topic we revisit often, because we just think it's such a good mentality to have, So I think it's a solid, it's a good mission overall for, I think, a lot of the kind of stuff that we focus on when it comes to, like, readiness and, more of that, Minuteman kind of perspective.
Yeah.
So
definitely
very proactive. It's not just, like, sitting back waiting. It's being proactive and figuring out and trying to get as much intelligence and advantage as you can.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up for today. We got to open up the shop and get busy with it, get people's orders knocked out, and got a busy day ahead of us. So we're going to call today right here, but I appreciate everybody tuning in, and thanks a lot to regular audience. We've been growing again, which is awesome to see, and we're excited to have. If you're a new listener, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate having you, and yeah, we'll chat at you next time.